the advertising industry do sell us a particular narrative of what's healthy, what's good for us, what's desirable, what's attractive for children, and of course product placement are all commending a particular way of viewing the world. And of course you get these happy eggs or happy hens. The truth is they're not happy at all.
I think the industry, if I'm allowed to say it, is lying to us. And all the money that's spent on adverts having us believe that lambs skip joyfully to the slaughterhouse is just a massive lie to get my money. There's a local farm here that opens its doors for the lambing season. And I asked them what happens to the lambs ultimately. And the farmer said, I think you know the answer to that. And I said, do you invite people to come and see that too? And I think that is the point. There's a massive deception going on.
There is so much suffering within the factory farming system, with so many animals often crowded together, for example in intensive chicken production. The injuries are phenomenally high. The spread of disease is vast. And as Christians who are meant to be compassionate and who at the very least have a responsibility of stewardship to the rest of creation, I don't see how we can convince ourselves that intensive farming is in any sense responsible stewardship.
I've seen distressing footage of factory farming. I've seen distressing footage of chicks and macinatas, and it made me feel deeply diseased and deeply uncomfortable. It was probably a lot to do with my transition from vegetarianism to veganism. I think the key is that we have to raise awareness for people about the sheer level of cruelty that we see in factory farming and abattoirs, all of those things, but also the realization that this animal suffering is also deeply unnecessary.
I think the answer is clear. A man who is perfect love and perfect compassion, a man who is God, would be scandalized by factory farming. And I think he would weep if he were to go to a factory farm, or worse, a slaughterhouse. And actually they're as bad as each other, really. There's no place for it for a Christian who believes there's a God of love. And we don't need it either. We actually don't need it. So it's an industry built on profit and greed. Sorry to say it, but it's true.
He also uses the example of chicks gathered round a hen as a brood. And that image that we're given of Jesus and of animals is one that's very holistic. It's a different world and a different universe from factory farming, from genetic modification, from the mass production of animals just as commodities. I think Jesus would be absolutely appalled by that vision of what is just simply exploitation. And I think one of the challenges we face as Christian vegans and vegetarians is the example that people do not know about this vast degree of exploitation.
And I think if in Jesus we're looking for the redeemed person, the person that's overcome sin, then I think, I can see why people would say, even if he ate meat then, he wouldn't eat meat now. Because the structure of producing meat is so violent and exploitative that they wouldn't identify Jesus with that. that as a redeemed person, he's not going to be a part of that system of sin that our food is a part of.
It would be to, wherever one sees an animal in distress, to try and do what one can to alleviate that distress. Whenever one sees, whether that distress be pain, whether that distress be thirst or hunger, whether that distress can be loneliness. I think you can see the example of that when people go to where there is animals are being transported to slaughterhouses and go and provide them with water and things like that. That is a good Christian example of washing their feet in that metaphorical sense.
Most people in our congregations, most people in the church will have a love for animals, and it's about sort of trying to help us move to that, getting ourselves to move to that next stage of not just a love for animals, but actually love in action, and saying something about some of the practices that we feel are unchristian.
A God of compassion will want us as his followers to treat animals with compassion too, to reflect that element of the nature of God that we have in our own hearts. And therefore, killing and eating animals does not reflect God, is not compassionate, and we don't need to. So if we are vegans, if we are only eating plants, then we are not causing the destruction and the violence that is necessary for us to eat animals. Christianity and veganism are a happy marriage, and I don't understand why more people don't see that.
As Christians, I would say we are to build the maximum amount of love and reconciliation in the world that it is physically possible to do so. And I find that veganism, as it's possible to live a healthy vegan lifestyle, veganism is the primary and highest example of that. We are able to live in harmony with creation. We are able to promote fullness of life for all beings.
If we are to present the good news to all of creation, part of it has to be to our animal brothers and sisters. And that must be in doing all we can to work for them to be treated with equal compassion and dignity as any human. And the start of it is the sort of thing, while animal agriculture is still being followed, is the sort of thing that compassion and world farming does, of better treatment for animals. But the only end can be, to be good news for animals as well, is that no animal is ever again bred to be slaughtered.
And once we've fully understood God's care for everything that God created, then I think Christians can start to make those changes that will mean the Christian gospel becomes good news for animals once more, who are respected as our co-createes, as our companions, as creatures that share with us on this sort of, round this one table that we all share, planet Earth. So there's plenty that can be good news for animals from within the Christian tradition.